So, Jeff Bray,
Yes.
I appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah, no, thanks for the invite.
I learned about you from a colleague at WJER. I think that you were actually in contact at some point with Bill Hammerstrom. He teaches, outside of being a reporter, he teaches at Buckeye Career Center. He does English as a second language for and mainly what he's involved in is teaching our Hispanic community and our Guatemalan community. And so that's kind of how you got in touch with him and how, in that roundabout way, I got in touch with you. So
and here we are.
Tell me a little bit about why it is that you're reaching out to people. How do you first get involved with what I'm going to call really cultural education?
Yeah, so after college, I graduated back in 2011. I went on something that's called the World Race, which is basically an 11-month missions trip. And in each month, you go to a different country. So it's not really a race, so it's kind of a misnomer. But anyway, through that time, you really kind of discover what your passion is. And mine was just simply working with people of another culture and people who were at a disadvantage. And so coming back, my plan was to go to Cambodia for a couple years and teach English, but I needed to raise some money for that. And I'm actually from Columbus, so my aunt and uncle live here in Tuscarawas County, well, actually Carroll County. But the area.
Okay, hey, that's where my family's from.
All right. So they said, hey, New Philly Schools is looking for someone who can speak Spanish. Maybe you could work there for this school year, raise some money. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. So I moved in with them, started working at the school. And once I started working there, I didn't realize that there was a huge Guatemalan population here. And every reason I wanted to go to Cambodia was right here in Tuscarawas County. Plus, I wouldn't have to learn another language, which is a plus because I already knew Spanish.
That's helpful.
Yeah, and just really working with them at the school, with the students, you realize that there's a lot of barriers in their way that maybe aren't apparent. And there's just a lot of other things under the surface that really made me feel for that population and really wanted to help tell their story. Because a lot of times, they would like to tell their story, but it's very hard to gain an audience in that way. So myself and some friends, we just wanted to start to bridge that gap and started developing and learning and doing these cultural presentations.
How do you get that, really, the preparation? I mean, where do you start for that?
Yeah, so a lot of the presentation is firsthand experience. We have tons of video, tons of photos, just through living life with that population, going to church, going to birthday parties, doing social outings, doctor's appointments, everything you can think of. And we just kind of, after every experience, you just document that and think through how does this apply to, them trying to acculturate to our community, what has been their experience back home and how does that translate here? And just really doing a lot of thinking, a lot of documentation, and sharing basically life stories with other people.
Before we get to what this training is, I mean, kind of take me through it with what you know. I know we want to have a purpose for you to go out and to talk to people about these things and really do your sessions. But I mean, I think it's a good chance now to hear about that and just kind of put that out there, even if maybe this would help. If someone wouldn't get a training, they still might hear the story from you. I mean, starting with misconceptions. We talked about that before we really started. What are some of those misconceptions?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. But I think the first thing is one of the main reasons why this group of people come specifically to Tuscarawas County. It started 20 years ago, but there was a civil war in Guatemala that ended in 1996. It was a 36-year-long civil war. So a lot of our parents, a lot of the adults that you would see around this area have had firsthand experience with that war, where a genocide targeted these Mayan indigenous groups of people. And that's what our Guatemalans are. They're Mayan indigenous people. And so Spanish isn't their first language. That's another misconception. So they speak a Mayan language, and there's multiple different types. There's up to 21 different types of Mayan languages.
Okay.
Yeah, so in our area we have Quiche, we have Ixil. So there can be frustration sometimes when businesses or agencies, they translate things or they try to communicate in Spanish, and because it's their second language, that isn't always the most effective way, and so that could lead to frustration. Well, why aren't they, we're doing this all for them.
Yeah.
Why aren't they getting this? And then because of the Civil War, a lot of these adults didn't go to school, or if they did go to school, it was very limited. So even if they do know Spanish, they don't necessarily know how to read or write it.
Okay.
So that can be a huge gap in frustration with, trying to reach out to these people.
Yeah. When it comes to Tuscarawas County, I mean, a question I've heard a lot, with whatever context it would happen to be in, is why here? Like, why is it that from the Guatemala to Tuscarawas County, that's a gap?
It is a gap. Yeah, well, it's interesting when you look at the Office of Refugee Resettlement stats for unaccompanied minors, which are children 18 and under that arrive at our border or arrive in our county without a responsible adult with them. Mm-hmm. We are third in the state of Ohio. There's, I'm not sure the exact order, but it's basically Hamilton County, Cuyahoga, then Franklin and us kind of switch back and forth, or give or take. So,
okay.
Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, then Dover, Philly. So what's up with that? But going back to the 20 years ago, we had some local factories recruit. And so they went down to Guatemala and also North Carolina, where they had some other factories, and they started bringing the men up. And the men would start working. And then the plan is always for the families to go back and be able to buy land to raise their families for themselves and have their own space. But because of the war, there was 450 Mayan settlements that were wiped out. Over 200,000 Guatemalans were either died or disappeared. Mm-hmm. And so for them, they lost their livelihood, they lost their land, they lost their home. So they come looking for a job to raise money so they could go back, buy land, and basically start fresh.
Okay. And
so those companies offered that opportunity for them, and that's how they ended up in this specific area.
It's like a vacuum effect, essentially.
It is. And so then they bring up their wives after they realize it's taking longer than they thought. They bring up their wives, and they have kids, and then just the population just grows from there.
Okay. And this is all you gathered this just through inserting yourself into the community, or rather attending
absolutely.
Events.
Yeah, and going to Guatemala. I've been to Guatemala 6 times now for different extended periods of time, staying with the families, and just learning from them and hearing the stories from that end, as well as from the community members here.
So when we talk about the Civil War, which is news to me, sadly enough, that ended, you said 96?
Yes.
What's going on down there now?
Well, the war's over. However, there's still a lot of discrimination. Mm-hmm. So these Mayan families are from the mountainous regions. Because Spanish isn't their first language, a lot of Guatemala kind of feels like those populations are holding them back. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about law enforcement or anything like that, medical care, with a language barrier, they might not be getting the type of services that they need, that they deserve. And so there's this kind of learned helplessness already from their own country, that they're not getting what they deserve or what they should get. So whenever they move to a new country, it's not that they don't want to trust, or that they just don't understand. Like, they're not used to that. Yeah. It's like, wait, people want to help us, and they go from having very few social resources to here we have, too many to count, and they all do something different. So it can be very hard for them to navigate, but it takes time to get there.
Yeah, what is life? I mean, how do you describe life up here for our Mayan-Guatemalan population now?
Work. They work hard. So a lot of them work in the factories, and there's a handful of other places that they are employed as well. But they work long hours. They're hard workers. A lot of them, even for doctor's appointments, they hesitate to take off because they're trying to raise that money. And the places where they work have very strict attendance policies. But what they're doing is they're raising money that they send back home for remittances to family members that are still in Guatemala, as well as supporting their family here.
What was that word you used right there?
Remittances. So it's basically money that they send back to their home country, so that their families down there can use to, pay off different debts or for food or daily expenses. Yeah.
So is this, when we say they're sending money back to their families, is this individuals that are up here, or are they with like their immediate family and then sending to their extended family? I'm sure that it's case by case.
It is case by case. It's really hard. I mean, we have some people that are sending money back to help support some of their kids that might still be down there. Maybe it's their parents, aunts, uncles. It really is just depends.
Okay. Tell me about bridging that gap then.
Yeah.
Have we described the gap well enough? I mean, I feel like it's hard for people to break a cultural barrier without knowing if they're like being offensive or if they're, I don't know, just kind of overstepping their boundaries is how I think a lot of people feel. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to even start with closing that gap.
Yeah, it's definitely a very long and slow process of change. And I think it's just step by step. And so the first thing with anything is awareness. And I think that's one of the foundations that our presentation we try to do is just provide, this is who these people are, this is where they're from, this is what they experienced in their home country, and why they come specifically to Tuscarawas County and what life is like here. Mm-hmm. And once people understand and start to see these population not as numbers or something they see on the news and see them as people and hear their stories, that's the foundation, that's the starting point. And then just encouraging people that if you do know a little bit of Spanish, it's okay to say hola and smile. Something as simple as that is very welcoming. And if they feel welcome, they're going to feel comfortable stepping outside of their comfort zone as well.
Okay.
And I mean, it's a huge mountain of an issue to overcome, bridging that gap, but it just starts with the individual and being personable and being willing to listen and step outside of our comfort zone a little bit.
How do you spend your time? That's what I'm interested in. I mean, I imagine for you not having that barrier, do you find opportunities to include yourself, or does that even make sense, that question?
Yeah, it does. I think I have a group of friends that are involved in the community as well. And I think it's funny that because I don't know Quiche or Xil, some of those Mayan languages, but knowing Spanish, we can still communicate on a basic level.
Yeah.
And so not having that barrier and just, I don't know, I think it's just like anybody else that would go about their daily life. Okay. And you might be invited to a birthday party, or you might go to Dundee Falls or whatever, and you're just doing it with that population, not just the Anglo population.
Sure.
It's life,
Okay.
And there are differences, the being invited to church services, obviously with the culture, it's just a different experience. But after a while, you just don't really think twice about it.
See, then that's the thing. That's where I sympathize with there being a gap, is because I feel ignorant after asking a question like that. Like, do you have more opportunities? Do you have more events? Like, no, you're just going about your day. You're you're not, I don't know. You don't feel that wall between you when you pass by or something like that.
For sure. And I think, whenever I was with some other agencies and be in meetings, there's always an agenda, and there sometimes is just a separate portion of the agenda to talk about how can we reach the Guatemalan population or the Latino population. Mm-hmm. But what we really want to see is not a separate agenda or talking point for them, but inject how can we reach the Latino population in each point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it is everyday life, and there are some differences, but the more that we can include in all the things that we do, the more normalized it becomes.
So through these training sessions that you're involved in these organizations, I mean, tell me about that, and having that click, that moment where people start kind of recognizing what's around us. Yeah,
and I think a lot of things that we see on the news is coming from, out of Texas, Arizona, that sort of thing. And this population, it is different. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of misunderstanding from that. But when people learn where they come from and why they come here, there seems to be more empathy for that. Like, okay, I understand a little bit more why they made this decision or why they came here.
Yeah.
And that's the starting point. Because anytime you go away from numbers and create a personal relationship or personal connection, and that's what we try to do through our videos and photos that we have is, they're not stock photos. They're all things that we've collected through the years to help tell that story. And people can, now when they see that Latino walking on the street or in Walmart or at a festival somewhere, they think through those photos and what they've learned, and they're more likely to be like, I wonder what their story is, instead of like ignoring them or just pretending like they're not there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think that opening our eyes. I almost said people's eyes, but the fact is I'm in the same boat as everybody else that you would be training. I don't have that familiarity.
Yeah, well, and that's, I started in college. I did several projects on immigration. It was completely on the other side, if there are sides. But basically, like, even in college, it took me traveling and getting out there and then coming and really interacting with the community to understand that opened my eyes. And that's why we also value the presentation, because we know it's not that people are bad or wrong or, are racist or whatever. It's just, if you don't know, you don't know. And more of it's fear of offending people, of is this okay to do? Is it not okay to do? And really just trying to bring that barrier down to try and bring everyone together.
Yeah. How likely are we to step over lines like that just by trying to break that barrier, to try to be nice? I mean, is that something that we need to worry about?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've had several people say, if I say hola and smile, are they going to be offended thinking like I'm mocking them? It's like, well, no, not really. I mean, just people can tell when you try, and body language goes a long way. And so even if you don't know Spanish or Quiche or whatever, the way that you present yourself, it's very easy. Just be welcoming, smile, and that, you're not going to offend anybody by being nice.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
At least I hope not.
Yeah, hopefully, or else I don't know what to do with myself.
Exactly.
So what would be the ideal progression? I mean, we're able to start being more familiar, being more friendly, and crossing those lines. I mean, where could that lead? Well,
and I think one of the things is we do have a lot of children that are first-generation immigrants, which means they were born here. They're U.S. citizens. They've lived their entire life here in the United States. And so you might walk by them and be like, oh, Latino or Guatemalan, but they're just as American as anybody else.
Yeah.
And so as that group grows older, as we start to see them in the workforce, starting to work at our fast food joints as they graduate or get into high school, we're going to start to we're going to start to see that more integrated. We're going to see people of color that it becomes more normalized, that it's not like, oh, the Guatemalans are over here, or someone who looks different is over here.
Yep.
They're a part of everywhere we go. And I think that's just where the patience and the time comes in.
And I wonder if this could lead to, I mean, I see this Latino population as a vulnerable population in terms of, I mean, we see the stories coming out of places like Case Farms where they are recruiting illegal immigrants for work because they don't have to pay them a livable wage, essentially.
Right.
Could this be another key to the solution of putting an end to that? Is that a hope?
That is a tough question.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I don't want to put you on the spot with these geopolitical questions.
Right. I mean, there's two sides of that. Absolutely, there's things that need to be changed with those businesses and companies. However, it's very complicated. I mean, there's been attempts to unionize through the years. I mean, before my time, and people that could speak better to that. But it's just they aren't unionized, and but it is a livelihood for them.
Sure,
and that's where you're
dealing with that problem of taking away their livelihood.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I'm fascinated by this political discussion that happens on the national level is very relevant.
Yeah.
At our level, like here in Dover and in New Philadelphia.
Yes.
It's insane to me.
Yeah, and it's funny, I watch the debates, both Democrat, Republican, and whenever immigration comes up with either party, I just kind of sit there and I shake my head. I'm like, none of these people know what they're talking about because it's just, there's such a disconnect. And unfortunately, it has become a political thing, but it's more of a people thing. And I always say kind of at the end of the presentation, like regardless of where you stand on immigration or this or that, the bottom line is these people are here and they're our neighbors. And as people, if we want to see our community come together, if we don't want to see negative stereotypes happen, then we need to engage each other. And through that, we can become a stronger community just by, being cranky and whatever. That's not going to solve anything or make anything better.
Yeah.
So
how do we do this? How do we make this happen for somebody that realizes, this is our community. They're a large part of our community. We benefit from it. but we don't know enough about it. If somebody wants to get involved with this training session, what's that process?
Yeah, so they can reach out to us, and we can give them the training, both individuals or schools, whomever, really. We're just open to anything that can be through Zoom or in person. And after someone goes through that, we are totally open to helping people take those next steps if they want to get involved to engaging that community even better. We'll go with them to a church service, a Latino church service. We'll go with them to one of the tiendas or local Guatemalan stores.
Okay.
Maybe they could join us on an outing sometime that we do. So it's just really, if someone really is serious about getting involved after they go through that, we definitely will find ways to help them get engaged.
Yeah. What's an outing? Explain that to me.
Life.
Give me an experience of an outing.
So let's say last week, actually 4th of July, we went to, a group of us took some kids to Dundee Falls, and one of the parents is like, oh, where is that? So I'm going to be going with the dad out this Saturday to show him, where it is, and just little things like that, so people could come along when I could take the dad out there, have conversations. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely awkward when you first start and with the language barrier, but that's overcoming that fear. And once you do, it's awesome.
So where do I get a hold of you?
That's a great question. Well, you know what? Before you forget, we have a new phone number for our group called One.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So,
tell me about the group. Yeah, tell me about the group.
So One, it's not a nonprofit, it's not an official organization, but it's just basically a group of us who have been working with the community, Guatemalan community, for me for the last 8 years and others for the last 20 years. And so we meet fairly regularly and just kind of talk about different issues that come up and just how can we engage the community and advocate for them in different ways. Mm-hmm. And we also have a Facebook news site that we started, because one of the things that we saw is we obviously don't have a Spanish official news network here in Tuscarawas County.
Yeah.
And so to be able to take verified, legitimate news that comes out and put that out to the community through that Facebook group, we hope that it becomes a place where they know they're getting accurate information. Mm-hmm. Because before they get it from Telemundo or Univision, which is, national or multinational news network, and you don't get any local.
Yeah.
So something as simple as, Tuscarora Park rides opening up. We want to put that out there so the families are aware. When schools release something on their Facebook page or elsewhere, we want to translate that and make sure the families have another resource to get that information. So that's basically what the One group does. And I need to pull the number up here because it is so new. We started that, and we started the number basically to help with the census. That's another thing that we're doing, helping families fill out the census so that they're counted.
So are you involved in that complete count committee, or is that kind of on your own?
I'm not involved in the committee.
Yeah.
However, through my employment at the library, I'm kind of helping spread the information that way.
Okay.
So yeah.
Is that what you're up to at the library, or you fill in all kinds of roles over there?
All kinds of roles, normal roles. So I'm a public service associate. Essentially, it's a reference librarian, so helping anybody in the community with really any need that they come in with, and obviously the typical stuff of books and all that.
I imagine,
but the library has a lot more to offer. Selfless plug for that. But obviously, things with COVID right now are a little goofy. But
I'll give it time. You're opening it up here in about a week.
That's right.
I imagine knowing Spanish at the library is helpful too, as in terms of helping the library.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a community resource, at the library, to be able to have different things available in Spanish is certainly helpful. And that's another way that the gap can be bridged.
Yeah.
I can say that right. Because it is a community place, and for the Latinos to be able to come in and get help with translation for something to be notarized, or help with something they need, paperwork or a computer or whatever, to be able to have them come to a place in the community where other people come to.
Yeah.
Is obviously a positive thing.
Oh, I like it. Yeah. So get us in touch with the group One.
Yeah. So the phone number that we have, and disclaimer, the voicemail is in Spanish, but please leave a message in English, no problem, because the number is mainly for the Latino community, but we will answer and be able to communicate in English as
Yeah.
well. So don't be freaked out by that. So our number is 330-556-0428.
Ooh, 556. That's new.
Yeah, it is. It's a Google number. But that is, you can call or text.
Okay.
Either way, we can communicate through that.
Okay. And that's to set up a training maybe as well?
Yeah, set up a training, or if you just have a simple question, or if you have an agency or business that has an activity or something that you want to help promote out to the Latino community, you could contact us there and we can help get the word out.
Okay. How many organizations, you lose count of how many you've helped with training so far?
Yeah, I mean, through the years, it's been quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. Who might consider this if we're thinking about the organizations, the either private business or nonprofit side of things? I mean, yeah. Who could this? Is there anybody it's not for? Can't imagine.
I don't think there's anybody that's not for, especially when you think about whether it's schools, agencies, businesses, any of them are interacting with the Latino population, with the Guatemalan population. So to help improve business, help bring people, maybe help bring the Latino population into your business, there's different things that you can do to be more welcoming or to let that population know, like, hey, you know, we're here, we're open, we don't care where you're from, you know, or what language you speak, we want to engage you and be part of that.
That's fantastic. I like this. What have I missed here? I don't want to cut you off.
I don't know.
Say
There's
we're
a lot.
all wrapped up. There's a lot.
That's why you have to do the training, I guess. Yeah, and the trainings are free. I mean, that's the other thing. Our heart is really we want people just to learn, and we want people to engage. So I don't think that there's a catch-22 with any of this. It's pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah. How long do they take?
It can be anywhere from a half hour to 2 hours or more. It just really depends on how interactive people are. And that's how we do it. It's super interactive. We know people have questions. And we want it to be a safe place for people to ask those questions. And we're not going to be offended. And that's how we start to bridge that gap. And we say that like it's a cliche through this whole time, but is to have that dialogue and not be afraid to say, so I've seen this and I've always wondered this about XYZ. Well, we'll have a discussion about it. Yeah, no problem.